Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and in this video what I wanted to do is go over my new library RenderBlocks. Now usually when I create a new library, you'll find it over here on my website alexmercedcoder.com, and you'll find it under here under JavaScript libraries. But this library is so new, I haven't added it yet. So we're going to head over to my GitHub. Actually, there's a link to my GitHub. And we're going to go find my new library RenderBlocks, which in one way to find them is you head over to Projects. And see, I have all my libraries organized here. If you want to see my little boilerplates over here, all that good stuff. And that's RenderBlocks. Here we go. Okay, and basically the premise behind this was I've been learning how to use Vue recently, and really appreciating sort of how Vue reminds me of the old AngularJS, just with like a lot of the complicated and not as helpful bits taken out and faster. So all the good stuff, none of the bad stuff, and how easy it is to learn, and it's really nice. But I was using it, so it got me thinking about how it's built. I haven't actually read the source code yet, but I was thinking, okay, well, what we're doing here is we're creating a new instance of a class, and it's doing these things. So I said, let me try to build something like that. And I had built one library like this before called mblocks, but mblocks took a different approach, similar to components, except I didn't use web components in that library, where you're inheriting. So you're creating a new class for sort of each bit of UI that's inherited from a base class. But in Vue, you're not necessarily doing that. You're creating a new instance of a class, a Vue instance. So I thought I would do something like that. So I created this, RenderBlocks. So let's give it a shot. Okay, so let me close all this stuff. I was playing with C# yesterday. Yeah, okay. Let's close all this out. Yeah, I like to code. So let's see here, new folder, RenderBlock practice. I'm going to create a new file, index.html. Let's put in the script tag. Okie dokie. And then what I'm going to do is we'll just put the script tag here, instead of getting a separate JavaScript file, just for the sake of time. Okay, so basically the way this works is I would sit there and create an element, so div, and we'll say the div has an ID of app. So if you've done a basic Vue setup without the whole build boilerplate, you probably know where this is going. So div ID app. Okay, and again, I've loaded up the RenderBlock library with this tag here. And basically the way it works is I'll just create I'll say const app equals new RenderBlock. And then inside the RenderBlock, I just pass in my stuff. Okay, so we want to connect it to a target, which is going to be the target element, which is going to be an element with the ID of app. And then we want to pass in a render function, which is going to be a function that takes in the block. So when I say the block, it's going to take in this whole instance of the object. It's going to take in the block, and I'll be able to use all of its stuff. But the main purpose of this function is to return a template string. So I'm just going to keep it simple. And hello world. So there's the template. Okay, and then that's technically it. Now I'm just gonna make another property called info, which is the same as like data in Vue or state in React. And right now this is just gonna be an empty object. And there you go, save. So let's open this up. Let's see if it works. Nope. I must have forgotten something. Let's take a look. ID app, render block, return. Yeah, no, that should be showing up. I think it's because I have this defer keyword here. Yep, there we go. Hello world, because I was deferring basically the library was loading up after that script that instance was created. Okay, so hello world. Good. So now what I can do is if I want to put like a variable here, say hello, which equals hello world, I would just use normal string interpolation, just because it seemed like I like using string interpolation, because if I can use something built into JavaScript that does what I want it to do, why create another way? And I have a feeling like things like Vue, React, and all that stuff was all created before like string literals were in JavaScript, but now that they exist in JavaScript, I'm just going to use that. Okay, so now I can just do this. Block.info.hello, because again, the block that I'm passing into the function is essentially the instance. It has a property called info, and I want to use the hello property. You know, cool. Save. Okay, and let's see here. Block that info. Yep, you still get hello world over here. Hello world plus 1. Now let's just make this a number. Okay, a number. And what we're going to do is we're going to create methods. Okay, so similar to in Vue is a method block. Okay, and we're going to say add one. Okay, and the way I made this is that instead of having to use this keyword, every method can be passed in the block again. So we'll say this, and then there's a function called update1 or update info that allows you to update a specific item in your info block. So I can say, okay, I want to, whenever this add one function gets does, what it's going to do is we're going to update the info specific. We're going to update the hello property in our info, and we're going to have it equal block.info.hello plus 1. Okay, that's going to be what we pass in there, block.info.hello plus 1. So I'll just add 1 to it every time that function gets invoked. Okay, and let's see here. In our template, we'll add a button. Button with ID add one button. Click me slash button. And then what I did is to add event listeners. There's another property here that's called after. So there's 4 lifecycle methods. Initial before, which is the first time the component renders. Then before, which renders before every render. Then there's after, which is after every render. And then initial after, which is only after the first render. Okay, so let's do this. So I want to set an event listener on that button after every render. So what I'm going to do is create my property here after. Again, we're going to pass in the block into the function. Okay, and then basically what's going to happen is we're going to use query selector, select the button that has an ID of add one button, and then we're going to add an event listener to that button. And we're going to add specifically a click listener, and then the function we're passing in is going to invoke this method. So block.use method. Okay, now use method allows me to use any method that's in the method block, but it gets passed in the instance. That's the beauty of it. So I want to use use method. I want to use add one. Okay, so it'll invoke the add one method which will get passed in the block every time I click that button. And let's see here. See if that works. So here's click me. Nope. Let's take a look at the console. Did I miss a step here? Reference error. Query selector is not defined. Oh, that's right. Document query selector. Oops. Okay. Save. Let's refresh. Oh, still not doing it. Elements. So let's go in the console here and type in app.info. Okay, so the property hasn't changed yet, so let me just make sure that I'm thinking the method's right. So let me go back to the docs. Is it update info? Use method. Yep, that's fine. Yep, no, that's all good. Yep. So let's walk through this logic carefully. Okay. And is that block called methods? That's the other question. Yes. So we have a method called add1. Good. And then document.query selector, add one button. ID equals add one button. Dot add event listener. Event block dot use method add one. Okay. Add one, which is there. Render block blocking for that hello. Yeah, that should work. Is the event listener attached? Elements, div, a button, add an event listener, click. Event. Okay. So it is triggering the render, so that's good. Use method, block that update info. Might just be this. I could just replace this, Control X, over here. Skip a step. Control Z. Block that info.hello. +1. There we go. Okay, so it's just syntax. There you go. Okay, so every time I click the button, okay, and just kind of walk through what's happening, is that when I click the button, it's triggering this click event, which is saying, hey, use this method. The block gets passed into the method add1, okay, which runs the update info function, which is like set state, except it does it for one key at a time. So I'm saying I want to update this key to this value, which is the current block value +1, which then updates this and then triggers another run of this render function. And then after that runs, swapping out the HTML and updating the DOM, it then runs the after function again, which re-adds the click listener to the add one button. Okay, and the reason why you want to do that, okay, is because if not, every time it replaces the DOM, then the event listener is gone and whatnot. Okay, so there you go. Okay. See, every time I do it, it's against a new button every time, so I have to keep clicking this. Doot, doot. Okay. And that's pretty much how that works. Okay, and then again, if you want to like loop over stuff, it'll all be based on your template. So instead of having to have like a v4 directive, you could just use, you know, map. Kind of like in React, where you can use a lot of just plain old JavaScript methods to kind of sit there and create your JSX. You could just do your template string and use interpolation with JavaScript methods to do all the things you would normally want to do. Yeah, the only thing I can think of that this doesn't do easily is that whole conditional rendering, which you could do. Yeah, you could just do that with template strings. You could just create like ternary operators instead for different portions of your template. But otherwise, this gets the same idea. And again, doesn't have like the ability to do subcomponents, or you could. Basically, you just have to create another render block within the render block, but that might get a little complicated. But yeah, this is just a quick library I created. It's simple, it's easy. I don't think it's like that big of a library. Let me actually just go find the file. Yeah, 1.2 kilobytes. So 1.2 for 1.2 kilobytes, you can do a lot of stuff, which is pretty neat. So my name's Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. Have a great day and enjoy.